Hey, legends, we're heading out. Here you go, brother.
Right.
Let's roll.
It's good.
Go. Good size jump.
Yeah, this huge group.
Man, you look for business, man. You need to let me film you too, man. Because, you gotta get that kid on film.
Okay.
Right and left.
How you doing? How you doing, my man? All right. Good morning.
How you doing?
Right.
Today's ride, Paul and I left Northampton. We rode into the woodlands to pick up Team RR. If you look at the profile up there, you see all the ridges. It was a very challenging ride. Doug also was on the ride. And we headed down 1488 west. Took the overpass. We got on 149 there. Into the Keenan cutoff right there. There was a lot of action on there. We headed to Montgomery and we took clips all the way up to the rest stop in Montgomery. After the rest stop, we headed back through Dobbins on 1486 to Jackson Road. Lots of action on Jackson Road. We were just riding at that point. We did not film, but I think we've got enough. And the focus on this ride will talk about group etiquette and really using your effort in the right manner. And I hope you guys enjoy the film. We're rolling out of the parking lot at this point. There's Dan up here. There were a few riders whose name I'm not familiar with. Get different faces every week. The group kind of starts out pretty big and then it kind of whittles away as the ride goes on. When I ride out here, I don't use this shoulder. I just stay on the road. It's 2 lanes. I'm talking to Paul H here.
One of those old Tour de France videos of Pantani and Lance. I forget what final it was.
I thought it was Mount Ventoux, but he said he's talking about Pantani and Lance on a climb, but it was not Mount Ventoux. He's talking about how Pantani attacks in the drops, and he likes to climb in the drops. And I told him it works for Pantani. That's what we're talking about. Paul has the camera behind us, so you can't really pick up the conversation. But I told him, I said, it doesn't work for everybody, you know, because even Contador said that when he tried to do that. That's what I'm showing him. He tried to climb like that. Paul's telling a guy from Australia who's trying to find the channel, and he said that he searched for harmony, which is such a generic word, instead of Veloharmony.
It's a velo, like a V-E-L-O. You're right, bicycle in French, right.
So that's what they're talking about.
Okay.
I made up that word because I didn't want to call the channel Bike Fit or anything like that. It's too much of a keyword. And I wanted it to be something that related to the harmony between man and machine. And I just made that up. Bicycle harmony. Just made sense. Instead of saying bicycle, I chose the French word vélo, or vélo in French. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what it's about, the harmony. If you're not harmonized with your bike, it's hard to really be efficient.
Oh yeah. I look forward to it.
I will show you in this ride where a guy's been riding for decades and still uncomfortable. I will show you.
He brings awareness to things that you're going to do differently, or better.
Paul's telling him about my narration.
Yeah, this guy is very knowledgeable. Very. Yeah, he did my fit. And oh yeah, he does fit everything. He works on a bike. We spend a lot of time together. Yeah.
He's talking to a guy from Australia, an Aussie. That's a heavy Australian accent. Even though I do a lot with cycling, when I go on the rides, I don't push my services. If somebody's interested, I let them know about the website. They can go check it out. I'm here to ride, so I don't do too much talking about, you know, what I do when I'm not riding. So I don't bother. Because a lot of times Paul would tell me, like there was a guy on this ride on the way back. He said, "Why don't you tell him about the channel?" I was riding up to the guy. It was Rudy. He's a guy that on the last ride in the forest had latched onto the group, and he wants to start riding with the group. He lives in our area, and so Paul thought I was going to tell him about the channel. I wanted to tell him that because he hasn't ridden with these guys. I was letting him know on this stretch, these guys go fast, save your energy, you know, because some of these guys expend too much energy and then you end up having to wait for them. He wasn't one of the guys, but I just wanted to familiarize him with what the group does, and that's all I wanted to tell him. And I explained to Paul, I said, yeah, that wasn't time to tell him about the channel. I don't like to sell the channel when I'm on group rides. I guess it's not great business sense, but that's not my reason for being there. I want to ride. And then if the conversation goes that way, I casually mention, I give people the links and then go check it out. The channel will sell itself. The website sells itself. I don't need to try. This is the week after my rest week here. And I came to this ride. I told Paul about it. I felt like we'll call it fresh legs. That rest week just did wonders. Everything on this ride you will see. There's a lot of riding I did. I did a lot of pulling. A lot of it you can't see me pulling because Paul sat in the back, and I will explain. I decided to use this video to explain why you don't want to be in the back too long. Just, you know, as a teaching thing. But as hard as I rode, nothing felt hard. And it's really hard to explain. I don't get legs like that frequently because usually I've got a million things going on. But today was a special day. Everything I did felt easy. And how I could tell it was hard was because people were getting gapped. I'm down the road there. We're just rolling. I know we rode to the ride, which is another detail I don't overlook. So I got there warmed up. That's why you see me up the road. Because there are a bunch of guys up the road ahead of us. So we're riding up to them. Because quite a few people ride to the ride start. These guys live in this area. So right there we've caught up with the guys up front. There are quite a few things I saw in the clips here that I wanted to point out. I didn't notice it during the ride. One of them relates to maintenance that's coming up at the next light. What I'm trying to do is make sure I've got everything flagged so I can talk about it when we get there. I believe it's here. There's a guy that rides with these guys called John, and those of you who've been keeping up with the group rides, I think it was when did I attack in the forest? When I attacked in the forest and Victor caught up to me and we rode away, he had chain problems. He was trying to shift, and his chain was falling off the front chain ring. Something was going on with his drivetrain. Well, he hadn't addressed it, and it's been like 2 weeks, I believe. Yes, it's been about 2 weeks. So now here it is, fast forward 2 weeks, on this ride coming up right at the light. I didn't notice it because I was in front of him, and when the light changed, I just went through the light. But by looking at the clips and then remembering the ride, from this point of the ride, I did not see him again. So he must have turned around and gone home. He did not ride. He did not finish the ride with us. He did not ride beyond this point, and this is just the beginning of the ride. The gentleman I'm talking about, you will see, I'll put an arrow on him. He's in front of this guy with the red, white, and blue jersey right now. The guy who just signaled in the chartreuse, he's right next to the guy in chartreuse. His jersey says MS on the back. That's John. He's the one with the drivetrain problem. I'm right in front of him at this light. There's John right there, says JM on his jersey. He's talking to this guy in the chartreuse backed jersey color right here. So as the light changes, he has drivetrain problems just going through the light. I don't know. I sped it up here because this light was long. And I just kind of did an edit thing here, like a time lapse for time. And I want to point that out. The light changes here. We begin to go. I basically take off. I'm not looking behind me. Now watch. I put an arrow on his drivetrain right there. That's a big deal. That thing can break a chain. And Paul was right next to him and exclaimed as it happened. From this point of the ride, I did not see this guy again. So I believe he must have turned around. You've got to keep your bike maintained. You know, I believe that if you're serious about cycling, you need to understand basic maintenance. That's kind of like in your car. You need to at least be able to repair or replace a flat tire. Basic stuff. You need to understand basic things. So even if you can't do it yourself, you need to know when they're due so you can take them to the bike shop and get them done properly. Because when you get on your bike, it's all about riding. It's not a maintenance session. So he missed out on a good ride. That's fitness he lost out on. That's the point I'm making. So don't skimp. You don't need to be a bike mechanic, but you need to understand when things are due. You need to understand how to keep up with stuff before they wear, because if your drivetrain is bad, it can wear out your cassettes. And the cassettes are more expensive than a chain. I mean, a $25, $30 chain to wear out a $300 something cassette, that doesn't make any sense. So get a chain checker tool, check your chain. Don't go by mileage, because it's not mileage, it's care. If you take care of your chain, you get more wear out of it. If you take care of your drivetrain. So don't let people tell you, oh, 1,500 miles you're supposed to replace it. No. Some people ride in the rain and don't clean their chain. So if you use your chain in tough conditions or dusty conditions and you don't keep up with it, you will have to replace them more frequently. You can't do it by mileage. You need to get the tool. Right there, I'm reaching for food. My body's telling me that I need to eat something because I got up in the morning, I didn't have any appetite, and all I did was drink liquids. So I'm eating something right now before the pace starts, because I've been on the bike about 40 something minutes already. We started the film with them, so we've been riding with them for almost 12 minutes. And I'm feeling good. I mean, I'm just up the road riding. I just wanted to talk about that maintenance thing. Do not neglect maintenance, and you need to understand it so you can be prepared. You need to know what to take with you. When you know, there are no records to call for your bike. You'd have to get somebody to pick you up or get a ride home if you can't. Make sure you have what you need when you go to ride. We ride on quiet country roads. You're out of the mainstream most of the time. You know, maintenance goes a long way. You won't have surprises. I keep all my bikes maintained preventively. I don't wait for problems to occur. It's a simple machine. That's why I don't do all the electronic this and electronic that. I don't need a battery failing on me. When I need a shift, I want a cable. I've never broken a cable yet. So, you know. But if you do have the electronic stuff, make sure it's charged. Understand how they work. Keep up with it. You're going to spend the money for it. Whatever you put on your bike, make sure you keep up with it. My bikes are very simple. I don't have anything other than my Garmin on my bikes. I don't like to put anything on there. We ride with people that have a lot of stuff around their stem area. You know, they've got like a radar unit and this. I got time for all that. Stick a light on there, I'm ready to go. You know, and I bought the lightest light. Those of you who have seen the video of my lighting, you know what I'm talking about. Keep it simple, because the more crap you put on your bike, it affects how it handles, how it feels. I like my bikes to be lively. We turn right here. That guy's going left. I'm not sure what his plan was, but he was the one that just showed up in the parking lot when we were turning to leave. I guess he was just there to chat for a bit. On Saturday, I get at least 3 hours in my legs. That's when I can go out and do long rides. And most seasoned riders That's the way it works. 3 hours or more, unless they got something going on. That's when you can do it. During the week, you shorten it and you change what you're doing. But on the weekend, it's time to put it all together. So we stop at this light. I don't know if I sped it up. Yeah, that's Paul's kit. Paul's all in orange today. The team kit goes well with that jersey. I'm wearing my Rafa graffiti flyweight. This guy in front of us in the chartreuse jersey, about I think 3 hours into the ride, all he was talking about was how hot it was. And it took me a while to realize that was on his mind so much.
Man, that sun is out quick.
Because I looked at his jersey, he's wearing the wrong kind of jersey for this heat. That's a mid-weight jersey. That is not for this kind of weather. That's for 50 Fahrenheit, 10 C or below. That's why he's hot. The jersey I'm wearing is charcoal. It looks black. It's charcoal. I really love the colorways, and I tell you what, it felt like I was wearing a screen, and it's not fragile. So yeah, Rafa hit this one out of the park. It's even better to me than the white one I got earlier. So every time they come up with something, they're just improving on what they've already had. It's a limited edition one. They put it on sale. It's sold out like hotcakes. I love the way it feels, and the whole day I was comfortable. I only brought the zipper down maybe a quarter way at the top. Just very comfortable jersey. You can see that our speeds are already up. This ride was a fast ride. We just started fast. There's gravel on the right, and that's why we're riding next to the white line in single file. I don't like to ride over little rocks. In a while, I will start talking about the behaviors in the pace line. The gentleman in front of me, his name is Paul. I think his last name is Moore, so I'll call him Paul M. Somebody takes a pull for a while. I think it was Doug, and after Doug pulls off, it's all going to be scripted so you can see it. He ends up like acting like we're sprinting to the finish line. He takes off. And all that does is break up the rhythm, especially it's only, 30 minutes into the ride right now. Early in the ride like that, he's going so hard, and we've got a long day ahead of us.
Yeah.
And I will show you how I handled it, because I'm on his wheel, and I remain there because there's 4 of us here at the front. Mike is pulling right now. Behind Mike, there's Doug. Behind Doug, there's Paul, and then there's me right here. And then Paul I has the camera behind me at this point. But then in a little while, he drifts back. And so he's not behind me. And then later in the ride, we'll talk about how you got to be careful when you sit at the back, because you end up expending a lot more energy. You're not really saving a whole lot. And then you're out of the action. So when something happens, you just can't participate. So you should only sit at the back if you're trying to get in shape and you just feel like, man, I can't stay up there, I'm gonna leave gaps or whatever, because I don't believe it's easier back there. There's so much of a yo-yo effect. That's Dan the man. I didn't get the name of this gentleman. That's Paul H right there that went by. He just did a time trial last weekend, and he just put out some great numbers. He's in his 70s. And he's still kicking it. I mean, he's a monster on the bike. We really missed Victor this week. You know, Victor is a very strong rider. I've known some strong riders in my time, but Victor just has the natural talent. You know, he's just a rider. You know, he has his own style. He uses a lot of large gears. You know, whatever works for you. But I missed him not being here. You know, I read some of the messages, and he said he just couldn't be at the ride, and you know, maybe something was going on with him, which makes sense. I mean, if you don't feel like you're in a condition to come and ride, maybe you're tired or you're working or something, I think it's cool. But So if you're watching this video, Victor, just know that you were missed on Saturday. Victor's a strong boy. I like riders like Victor who doesn't go 100 yards hard. He can go and sustain it instead of just going for a few yards. There's an officer sitting over here. We go by him. In a little while, he comes by. So when you go to your rides, you want to go with people like Victor who can go hard and maintain it and work with you. Like a few weeks ago when we broke away, we were riding hard for over 10 minutes into the wind, So those are the people you want to go with. Don't go with guys who are just a flash in the pan where they go to the next stop sign, then they sit up and you don't see them for the rest of the ride. Don't waste your energy chasing those guys. There's no point to that. Go with the guys who are gonna go and they'll hold that pace for 10-15 minutes and you guys get a serious gap and put time into people. That's what I like about Victor. You can see guys are having fun. We're just kind of rolling, but look at the speeds. I mean, it's early in the ride. It's like there was no warm-up. These guys are ready to ride. And so here's the thing. In a little while, say we're doing 37, now it's down to 48. We're probably going downhill here a little bit. It says -0. Just a slight downhill. There are no big downhills on this road. It's a flat road. But we're going into the wind. The wind's coming out of the west. So it's not easy. What I did this week is the wind you're hearing is what we heard. I've got this thing to where I'm using something that measures decibels and I'm getting it to where I'm dialing it every week. Even Simon Moses gave me a feedback on some of the stuff that we've been doing and what he liked and does, it was good to get that feedback, but I'm trying to get it to where you're going to hear the wind like we hear it. Because when we're out there, I mean, you guys that ride, you know what I'm talking about. This is the way it sounds to us. So you're basically coming along for the ride. The only thing that wasn't there was the music. Now, right there, you see Mark shifted back. And in a little while, I will do a little stop where I put some graphics and I will show you. Mark's been riding for decades. And he still doesn't like where he's sitting on that saddle. Some riders just end up living with it. I've always been very anal. So when I used to race, I wasn't happy to live with it. That's how I got into bike fitting. There is no bike fitting school. I poured over books. I bugged people who knew in the shops, the local shops, because I used to do part-time work in the shops. That's how I learned a lot of things about bike maintenance. But I bothered them to where they showed me, and then I read books and I re-engineered stuff to get the skills that I have today, because I wasn't happy to just live with discomfort. I didn't have a coach that knew bike fitting, so I had to do it myself. But many riders spend years tweaking their fit. It's not uncommon to work your fit over time. It's not an overnight thing, and that's why when you find a good fitter, you use that so you don't have to go through the trial and error. I'm up front there. Paul is back here behind Mark, so you can't see me. I stay near the front because I believe it's easier. The only reason I stayed in the back with the bike barn is they ride at one speed for the most part, and they're stopped like a cheap watch. So it was a no-brainer. I would sit in the back and just coast. Look at Mark. His shorts are bothering him. He doesn't like where he's sitting on that saddle, and you will see him scoot back in a little while. I actually do a freeze frame to show you that. And even though I see this and I'm talking about it here on the narration, I don't bother people at the rides about stuff like that. If he were to come to me and ask me about it, then I would tell him, come to the studio, I'll get you dialed in. Because it's just the information's out there and some people are just not into that. So you have to make yourself familiar with the information so you can benefit from it. Nowadays, we don't have to go to the library for anything. Information's there. Mike has pulled off the front. So that means Doug is there. Mike is on the right as we go by here. He's been pulling. And so Doug is at the front. Now you notice the speed went up. You see right there? Mark's going to shift back. Watch. Right there. That's where he wants to sit. He wants to sit back there, but he's sliding forward. So it's a combination of tilt, slash saddle fore aft, and in his case, I believe a few millimeters of saddle height. You see him scoot again. It's the little changes that make the biggest differences when you're close in your fit. He doesn't have a bad fit, it just needs to be really dialed in. And where you sit is affected by your cleats as well, because you're locked in. If your cleats are not set up right, it will pull you out of where you want to be. So those of you who are not familiar, go through the Bike Fit videos or sign up for our remote fit. We'll get you situated. But anyhow, I'm at the front and I'm behind Paul M, and Paul M is behind Doug. Doug is pulling right now. It's a slight downhill at this point, but with that wind, you're working. And I look here, you see I'm coasting. I'm coasting because I'm drafting really closely. If you look at our shadow on the road, everybody's drafting. That's why Mark's putting his hand out. There's something going on, something in the way, and basically what he's saying, we're slowing down. We're drafting really tight. The wind is coming from the front and the left. If you look at the top guys up there, we have a slight echelon. You see everybody shifting a little to the right, just to cheat that wind as the speed goes up. But we yo-yoing because the guy at the front can only go 40K for so long. So the speed will go to 39, then to 35, then to 36, instead of a steady speed. That's one of the things I want to point out. You're riding with the group, it's not a race. There's a lot of little reflectors there. I hate going over those things. So I always avoid them. I don't want to go over them. They're uncomfortable and it can cause you to have a pinch flat if you hit them while you're sitting. You can see Mark all over his saddle. He's not comfortable. And it could be the two contact points, the saddle and his feet. Something is bugging him. You see I moved left because I'm trying to avoid those reflectors, but I checked for traffic before I moved. There's Doug. He's pulled off. He's done pulling. Now watch. Paul's gonna act like he's racing, like the finish line is here. He doesn't even look behind. He shoots off the front. I decide I'm not gonna waste my energy to chase him. It's like 28 minutes into the ride. Right there, this guy has to dodge a hole. And you see there? That's the hole. So he's going so hard, he's not even pointing out obstacles to us, and he's just riding with his head down. You don't want to do that. You need to know where your mates are. In a little bit, I will show you how much off the front he is. And what I do is I motion with my hand to the guy behind me. It's Michael. I tell him, just remain calm. I'm basically like a pumping motion with my palm towards the ground. That's what I'm doing to let him know we're good. There he is, all off the front. He has no idea that we're not on his wheel. He hasn't looked back. And all I do here now is I edge the speed up because I know what's coming. There's an overpass. It's at least 3%. And then we're going into the wind. So I know he's not going to hold that thing that long. And I just edge the pace gradually to keep the group together. Because if you do it too drastically, you break up the group. And you can see now, if you look at my heart rate, it's gone up. Now watch. Watch the speed. We're going slight downhill here. It says -1. But I don't let up. I shift up. In whatever gear I'm in, I go into a bigger cog and I keep my cadence up. We pass him right here. We've already caught him. And then I twist the screw. Watch my heart rate will go up. At least 3 to 4 beats. Other people, it might go up more. My heart rate doesn't go up that much. I mean, you know, it's just I have a low resting heart rate. All the years of training, I guess. I think it's probably genetic as well. And I had good legs today, not just my heart. My legs were strong. After my rest week, this is a higher pace. Mark's putting his hand out because of a cyclist standing on the side of the road just to let people know, be ready to stop if necessary. I'm sitting at the front right now and I'm keeping the effort high. What has happened is Paul M had to get in like 4th position, I believe. He's behind me. So he really didn't stay at the front that long, and I decided we're not gonna wait. I'm through the light already, and we're going. We're going. There's nothing, you know, that road to the right is like a spur. It doesn't go anywhere. The intersection was clear. And then I let Michael, I told Michael to give me, you know, I basically flicked my elbow. Michael went up to the front. So we've got Michael in front. Dan is behind Michael, and I am behind Dan because Paul M left a gap open for me to get in because the pace is hot. He's done all that work at the front. He didn't want to get back at the front. So I'm in third position right now. Michael doesn't know where to go. I tell him straight. We're going on the overpass. That road does not go through because there's a railroad track under that overpass, and they don't want any roads going over it. So if you take that little exit, you can't get across. So you have to use this overpass. This is not a freeway. This is a road that they built an overpass to go over the railroad tracks. That's all it is. So we can ride here. It's not protected or prohibited. That's the word. It's not prohibited from us using it. And it goes up to about 3% because they went vertical on this one to get over because some of the trains carry large cars. So Michael's climbing, Dan is there, I'm in third position. And Paul M is behind me. It doesn't register here, but it's gotta be close to 1%, and then it's gonna go up to like 2 to 3%. And it'll probably show up then. But this is a climb and it's long. And the gears that we're riding, you can see we're probably doing almost 18 miles an hour, maybe 19. I don't know. We're riding it pretty hard. Yeah, 2%. It's probably more than that because it only picks up the integers. It's about 3% at its highest point, and then it just drops off pretty quickly. So everybody tries to take a break, and I'm at the front, and I don't want us to slow down because a lot of guys will go off the front because they hope that you'll catch a light or a stop sign and they get the rest instead of dosing out their energy. And so I want to make sure I keep this hard. And that's the way you need to think. Don't give your all early in the ride. You see me on the left there? I'm keeping my eye on traffic because there is an oval, kind of like a semi-oval turn coming up. And I want to make sure that I keep the speed up because you can see now my heart rate is dropping. I'm coasting, 0 RPMs. Everybody's trying to rest. And I don't want us to rest. I want us to ride. There I am. I look for traffic. I move left. I'm in front so I can take a line. I'm carrying a lot of speed in that corner. 45 kilometers an hour. I lean the bike. I go inside. And then I drift out. So I start to open a gap. And I decide to just work that gap for a little bit. There's a red light coming up. So, you know, it's not far, but I just wanted to do that so I don't have to ride my brakes. Because if you follow the wrong person, then you have to slow down too much. By the time I finish it, the light over there is red. I can see it. And so right now the power's off. You can see my heart rate is dropping. I'm basically just soft pedaling. 17 kilometers into the ride is not the time to kill yourself, and he went so hard over there, and for the rest of the ride I didn't see him come to the front to pull or anything. And then you will see that he gets dropped later in the ride shortly when we twist the screw on Keenan cutoff.
Right there at Mount Orion 105.
Mark's asking the option for the stop, you know, whether people want to stop at a particular place, and nobody kind of took him up on the change, so we're going to stop at Taco Corner. We stop here, and there's some big trucks. You see that truck on the right? They're carrying, it looks like a lot of dirt or something. It's like a little convoy. and he starts to honk at us. I wave at him. He's basically saying good morning. A lot of these truck drivers, they're true professionals. The second guy, I think, is the one. Yeah, I waved at him, and then this guy waves at him. I think that's our Aussie friend. I think that's the guy Paul was talking to.
You're saying hello. He's like, okay, guys.
You can hear his accent. So he's saying hello. Paul says, he says, give us room. So the light's green, but these guys are still going through the intersection. Now look at Mike. He has both feet on clip. I don't like to do that because it just takes longer for you to get going. I'm already going. I'm up there turning. So Dan comes. Dan goes around. Now Dan didn't look behind, so he ends up gapping these guys. I call out to him, and I had to ask him to slow down because we had like two or three car lengths on the group. I'm like, you know, they're not here yet. This is where Paul is at the back. I'm not sure why Paul stayed here, and that's what I want to show, is that there's not a whole lot going on back here. The issue is I edited this for time. The content stays the same, but because this guy in front of him ended up being right in the camera lens, and we had so much of the film where you're just seeing the guy's jersey. You can't, like here, you can't see the road. And so usually we put the camera on the other side, but you know, it got better. You see here, this is a good view. That's the thing. So, but what I'm going to show later in this stretch is that when you're back here and things happen up to the front, you got to work to get up to that front. And Paul ended up doing that, and I'll show you how he handled it, which I thought was really cool. So Dan pulls off. Dan didn't pull very long. So look at the time, duration 40 minutes thereabouts. I just want you to mark the time and note how long I'm at the front. I'm pulling right now. You can't see me because Paul's all the way back here with the camera. Mark is on my wheel. And I know this road, I know how long it is or whatever, but for me, it's kind of like I was feeling good. When I'm feeling good, I'm going to do the work. I don't care. And the way I ride rollers is when we're going up, I use optimal gearing. You can see, look at my cadence. I'm doing 100 RPM at 32, 33 kilometers an hour. That's about 20 miles an hour. We're climbing 1%ers and 2%ers. And so we ended up averaging 20.4 miles per hour. So that's about 32 kilometers an hour for the ride with these guys. My average was less because I ride from the house with Paul and then we ride back. We just kind of spin, you know, on the way back and in the morning. But just the actual ride, we're over 32 kilometers an hour. You can see the speed says 41. You see the gap to this guy back here? He's right there, you know, I think he's okay. But what happens, the road goes up, I downshift, I increase my cadence. The road starts going down, I shift up and I ride harder gears. So what ends up happening is when the road is level, like it says -0, then it says -1, I don't slow down. I go just as hard. So my heart rate stays about the same. I keep the effort the same. So if you watch the speeds, when I'm doing 39 to 45 kilometers an hour, we're on a -0 to maybe -1 downhill. But 45 kilometers an hour into this wind that we have, you're working. Instead of coasting, I'm riding. And this is the benefit of the draft. You can roll because of all the wind that's being pushed aside for you. So this guy's not even pedaling. So the road flattens out and the speed drops to 37 kilometers an hour. Same effort. So we're turning right. Now watch here. You see where I am? They're still here. They haven't even reached the turn. I'm gone. I'm over the tracks. I'm gone. Mark's on my wheel. We're gone. They're just turning back here. This is the problem at the back. So now, if we were pressing really hard, they would have a hard time to get up there. Paul realizes it here, and he goes around this guy. He goes around Paul M here on the right. we're not really going full gas up there because I've been pulling since the 40-minute mark. I pulled for about 5 minutes. That's a long time in a group ride. So at this point, I'm like, okay, somebody else needs to come and help the group along here. We got enough people. And so when I back off the power, you see up there, everybody spread out across the road. Nobody wants to go to the front. When you see people spread out like that, the pace is not high. So Paul used his head here. Tete Jean. He slipped onto Dan when he was trying to get to us instead of him doing all the work to get to us. The guy in front of Dan is doing the work. Now look at that guy's jersey in front of Dan. You see how it's flapping? Remember that. I will show you, and even Dan's jersey catching a lot of wind. I will show you my jersey when when I'm in front riding later, when we attack on Keenan cutoff. Your kit makes a difference, and it needs to fit you. If you're gonna spend the money, you need to get the kit that fits you. You know you deserve it. So now I slipped back in because there was a gap. When they finally came around me, I slipped back. I'm still near the front. So you don't need to go all the way in the back to take a break. You can get the draft wherever. I don't care. If it's second position, I'll get back in there. Because if I have to get back to the front sooner, I'll just make sure I do an effort that is sustainable. I figure I've been pulling for 5 minutes. We got a lot of hills coming. I needed to take a little bit of a break. So I don't know if he shows me drinking, but I know I'm drinking, getting ready for more efforts. That's how you have to think. You can't just ride like you're unaware of how long the ride is or how hard the ride's gonna be. You need to dose out your effort. We have a lot of guys on this ride and some other rides we've done that just come and they blow everything in one move, and then we end up waiting for them. And then sometimes you'll make a move and nobody goes with you, but then when you wait for them and they catch up, then they hammer after you've waited for them. So my attitude is like, okay, if you could go hard like this, why did you not do that when we were going hard? So that we wouldn't have to wait for you. That's the part I can't wrap my brain around. If you can go hard after people have waited for you, they shouldn't have to wait for you. Use your effort to stay with the group. I'm not sure who's pulling. But you can see the difference. When I was pulling, my heart rate was about 20 beats higher. I'm sitting in the back, the speed's about the same. The terrain, yeah, flat, and it's 20 beats lower, thereabouts. Just gives you an idea. You know, there's no dispute that drafting works. That's why even NASCAR, those guys draft each other. I just stand to change the way I'm using my muscles right there. And before I did that, I shifted up 2 cogs. That way my speed stayed the same because my cadence was going to go down a little bit. But I did not stop my pedaling. I'm adjusting my shoe. If you notice, I'm still looking forward. I look back to traffic. I always like to know what's coming. My socks was bunching up on the left top of my foot, and it just felt uncomfortable. That's what I was messing with. Bothering me throughout the early part of the ride, and settle down. My shoe fits my foot very well, so anything out of place, I feel it. And that's what you want. You don't want your foot moving in the shoe. You don't get blisters and other stuff. The shoe needs to fit your foot. Right here, you can see by my body action, somebody's pressing on the pedals. This is a grade. These boys get excited every time the road goes up. The problem is you got to be careful, because if you blow everything here and someone goes faster, you're going to be riding alone. And these little climbs, these 2 to 3%ers thereabout, with the gears we're riding, it adds up. This is a longer climb. You can see my cadence. The reason I'm climbing like this is because, first of all, I'm feeling good. You know, when you're not feeling great, you have to change your strategy. When I'm feeling good, I use my aerobic system more. You burn more calories. You know, there's always a penalty. That's Mark that was forcing the pace. Now he pulled off. You burn more calories when you're spinning, generally, especially if you're spinning at a cadence you are not accustomed to. Your body is not as efficient, so you need to be aware. So you eat more, you drink more, to keep everything under control. You know. So whoever got to the front is kind of slowed down. I think it's flattened out. Yeah, we're actually going downhill. And then I think the road will kick up again. Right there, you can see. Every time the road goes up, somebody presses on. And when your fit is right, you shouldn't have to be scooting around to pedal harder. You should already be in the spot. You should be able to pedal hard, soft, whatever, in the spot you're sitting in. I don't move around on my saddle. I moved to the left because Paul H came over too much. I wasn't overlapped, but he did a sudden side movement, and that surprised me. And just out of instinct, I moved towards the white line. I moved away from where Dan is. I know Dan is there, and that's one thing you need to do. When you're riding in close proximity to other cyclists, look under your arm. You don't have to turn around. You look under your arm, you can see your rear wheel. You will see the wheels following you on either side. I always know where people are that are following me. And this way I make sure all my moves are away from the wheel that's following me. So Dan didn't have to do anything. I never move towards where another rider is. If they're on my left, I favor the right. If they're on my right, I favor the left. So they can relax. So that move that Paul H made is something that he needs to work on, because you shouldn't be making drastic moves in the peloton. It needs to be gradual, unless something surprises you. Not everybody works on those skills, so that's why you always choose who you follow really close. I never overlap another rider unless they know I'm overlapping them in an echelon. Or if it's a rider I have confidence in, but even then I let them know I'm on your hip. You can see that we're going uphill and whoever's at the front is forcing the pace. Because my cadence is high, I don't have to strain when the speed changes. The coach I had always instilled in me he said, I don't even want you to have a cruising cadence. He used to tell me, he said, you should be able to ride at any cadence you feel like. What he meant is, if you're feeling good, anything's fair game. If you're not, you change that. So that's the thing. Don't limit yourself. Don't box yourself in. Do it all. Be able to do whatever, so that nobody can figure out what you're going to be doing. So you can even have a bad day, people won't know. Like a lot of cyclists, when they get dropped, the first thing they do is drop their head. You will never see me do that. Why you gotta drop your head? You ride the same. There's a guy, Laurent Jalabert. I used to love watching that guy. He'd be getting dropped, look like he's sitting at a coffee table. He'd be in a breakaway, look the same. He looked the same whether he was off the front or having problems. I love that about that guy. There are many other riders the same way. We call out gravel here, so people don't lean their bikes too much. So now these guys want to break. I don't want to stop. Every time there's a turn, main change on a route, people want the opportunity Dan was looking behind. He didn't see Paul H, and Paul H didn't look behind. That's what I was talking about. But Dan reacted well. You see, Paul H surprised Dan. You always got to look behind you as a courtesy when you're around other riders, so that you don't change your line and surprise them. I told Dan here I don't want to stop because he's saying we need to slow down. I don't mind slowing down, but I didn't want to stop. I want to keep riding. I'm asking Paul how he's feeling because Paul's left knee was bothering him the last time, and he said that and we made some changes to his training, and it ended up working, and so he's fine. So yeah, since we didn't stop, that's great, because people need to use their energy to stay with us. The same guys who are blasting off the front are struggling right now, and I don't want to stop for them. They need to use their heads. You need to use your energy to stay instead of trying to act like Superman off the front, then get dropped. That doesn't make sense. I'm ready to ride. Saturday, it's time to ride, not sit around waiting. So Paul H gets to the front, sticks it up, start to go. Everybody's back there. I don't know what they're doing, but they end up being a splitting, and you can see it gets very interesting in a little bit. Because I'm starting a new macro cycle. I'm starting on a high level. My legs are fresh, and I can't even feel the pedals. I told Paul about it. He laughed. Like last week, I told him 2 hours into the ride, I was just warming up with the bike bar. So that was a good rest ride for me. After taking a whole week off, my body absorbed all the training, so I am very recovered. It's important. When there's a doubt, rest. If you're not sure how you feel, rest. You're better off going in a little behind your training than overtraining. So at this point in the ride, I'm sitting on Dan's wheel. Paul Ilunga is behind Michael here with the camera. And he finally decided to come to the front to ride. Paul H had done a time trial, and when he got to the ride on this ride, he announced that he had done the time trial in 1 gear. I was very shocked to hear that, surprised, whatever. And so I asked him, why would you do it in 1 gear? I mean, you got like 11. And he said he just felt like it worked better for him or whatever. And so he's doing the same thing on this ride. This is not a time trial. So you can't do that, because as the hills, this road is not flat. Right now it says -0. It's going to pick up. If you look ahead, you will see the road goes up and down. You know, this is Keenan cutoff. It's not like 4, 5, 6%, but at these speeds, in the gearing that we're in, we're like a 53. For me, I'm riding a 19 or 17, something like that. Probably a 19 right now. When the road right here is going up, see it says 1%. I feel it more than anything. Look at my cadence. I don't allow my cadence to drop, because look ahead, the road's gonna go up again. So he's riding 1 gear. I don't know what his cadence is, but he's leading this little group. We end up detaching from the main group, even though they had caught up at that curve. They're not on our wheel right now. I believe they're gapped, or they will be gapped when I go. Because that's the thing, when you're pulling in a group, don't bog down your legs. If somebody lifts the speed, you're not going to be able to respond. And so he's riding like he's doing a time trial solo. This is another hill here. Look at my cadence, triple digits. Now, don't get me wrong. If you have not prepared your body for this, it stresses your system. It burns a lot of calories. You can blow your oxygen to where you're breathing, panting, whatever. You have to make sure you gradually train for that. Don't just see this and go start doing it. You have to prepare yourself. You have to have a structure in your training that will allow for that if that's one of your goals. So because I'm using my gearing optimally, my legs are fresh. Even though I came with fresh legs, didn't mean I needed to abuse them by not using my head. I look for traffic back there. We're going downhill. He needs to rest because he's been muscling all those little climbs. And so if you watch, we're doing 44 kilometers an hour, but now the speed's dropping. Look at my cadence. I'm coasting. That's why it's flipping back and forth, because I'm in the back. So the problem with muscling a big gear, when your legs tighten up and somebody lifts the pace, you can't respond. That's why road racers keep their cadence up. I adjust the strap of my shoe. It was a little loose. It was bothering me. I got it nice and tight, because we're just going slower and slower, and I'm getting impatient. I'm like, come on, it's a beautiful road. Let's make the most of it here. So I decide, okay, it's time to go. I just lift the pace. I didn't attack. I just lifted the pace a little bit. Paul's behind me. I'm not going full gas by any means. I'm like at the bottom of zone 4. My heart rate's gonna have to catch up. My effort's already there. It's windy. That's why I'm down. I get in the drops to get this gear rolling. I'm in like a 53.16 or 53.17. Probably 16 with 88 RPM. With the 17, I would probably be doing 100 RPM. So I start with a lower RPM because I plan on doing this for a while. Look ahead. There are hills, rollers. When you're going hard like this, it doesn't need to be 4%, 8%. Anytime that road changes into this wind like this, you've got to be able to handle that, because your body functions better with rhythm. That's why flat time trials are ridden differently than the ones that roll. That's the wind you're hearing. And so I'm not blowing a gasket here by trying to, I gotta do 50 kilometers an hour. I'm just riding steadily and hard at a pace that I can hold for 20 minutes or more. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm in what is called sweet spot. Maybe a little higher than that. Sweet spot. Below my time trial pace, but much higher than tempo. But I'm not going full gas. I look back, I see Paul. The road's going up here. A downshift. Look at my cadence. 96 RPM, 34. Look at that. 100, 35C. I keep the speed the same using a lower gear, higher cadence. But it taxes my aerobic system. So you need to prepare for that. After I crest that, I shift up using my muscular system. When I'm riding, I'm not looking at speed. It's just feel. It's too hard to pedal here because this corner, I don't want to hit the pedal. So once I get through it, then I resume. But I keep the effort high. So I don't worry about speed when I'm riding. I focus on effort. Look at my rear wheel, just moving, man. The bike is just singing to me. All I hear are my tires. Paul's right on my hip because we're moving. I wish this road was longer when I win. And I'm ready to continue. So I come over here, I think I freeze it. I will show you these tracks. There's a hole there. When you're riding, make sure your wheel does not go in vertical holes. Avoid them. They will stop you and knock you down. Right there. That's a hole you don't want to go in. It's wide enough to catch your wheel. You avoid it, or you take it at an angle like I did. I was carrying too much speed to go straight. I turned left, and a couple of guys are yelling. They're further back. So Paul tells me to.
Easy. It's a Veloharmony.
I was surprised they weren't there because we weren't going that hard. I wasn't going that hard anyway. And this is what I talked about. Now, we're going to wait for these guys. You'll see.
All right.
We'll wait for them, and then they'll start to go hard again. I'm like, why didn't you just go hard back there so we all could have been here together? That's the way my mind works. So I would pull in here. I don't like to stop by the highway like that. That's why we pulled in here. And I told Paul I wasn't going that hard.
Here they are. Yeah, that's it. I'm trying.
But the group had splintered on that road.
Let's get good.
Me and Paul was having problems clipping in because I heard the noise and I looked back. Now, these are the guys we're waiting for. The road here, this road is going up. This is a 1% climb. For me, the way I ride is I don't have to catch them this instant. We've got about, what, 5 or 6 kilometers to the store. I sit down and I settle into a rhythm. I can go hard, aggressively in a short distance, like in a sprint. I can do that. But why do that to just sit on their wheel? There's no point in that. So you have to know when, because it takes more calories, more energy to just do very explosive efforts. Michael does not want to be there. That's Michael in third position there. He doesn't want to be there. So watch. He's going to go on the road. He checks for traffic. He goes on the road. He doesn't want to be up here. And the thing is, I don't know why he's doing that, because you can stay there. You don't have to pull. So if you're in that position and you stay there, once Paul H up there gets through pulling, you just pull off with him or pull off after him. You don't have to pull. So I don't know why people go all the way to the back like that, but maybe he just wants to be back there. Last week I chose to stay on the back of the bike part because I was taking it easy the whole ride. But so we ride up here. Paul's on my wheel, and this was the thing he and I talked about. And I said, once we got with these guys, then they decided to go hard again. I'm like, why didn't we just all go hard from Keenan cut off and just continue to where we didn't have to stop? So what I suggested to Paul, that next time what we'll do is we'll go ahead and just stop at the store instead of where we stopped back there. We just keep riding, because if they want to ride with us next time, what they need to do is don't let the gaps happen in the pack. If you got something left, why did you let us just ride off? Because Paul H was pulling at a steady speed until I lifted it up a little bit, but not full gas. So it wasn't that hard. It could have been there. That's just it just keeps us moving. We end up wasting a lot of time waiting and this and that. When I go on my ride solo, I just go up, hour and a half, 2 hours, I'm done. Go do something else with the day. I don't like to sit around wasting time. Every group is different. Every group has different characters, so you have to know the rules of the group. There's some groups that will not wait, and you'll have to make sure you do your best to stay with them. I kind of like that approach. I don't mind waiting for people, especially if they're trying. I don't like to wait for people who choose to let the group go, and then when you wait for them, then all of a sudden they're Superman. You guys know what I'm talking about, guys and girls. If I'm gonna wait for you and then you're gonna ride hard after I wait for you, then you should have ridden hard to where I shouldn't have to wait for you. That's my point. I'm checking for traffic because I don't like to ride close to guardrails. The reason being is, if anything happens near a guardrail, you're gonna hit the guardrail. Because my default is to go right. I don't want to go into the lane, So if something happens, I much rather ride close to where you see this soft grass. That's where you want to fall. You don't want to fall on the asphalt. So right here is what I'm talking about. Somebody lifts the pace. I think it's Dan. Look at my fingers. The harder we go, the more relaxed I get. I answered a legend on the channel, letting him know, because he was saying that when he's at threshold, his hands get numb, because everybody clenches up when they go hard. I do the opposite. The harder I go, the more I relax. So I can use my energy for my legs. So now we're stopping again. He lifted the pace on that little rise, and then he's backing off again. Now look at Paul H in front of me. Look at his cadence versus mine. There's no one way to ride, but I just want you to kind of notice why he was unable to lift the pace. He was in cruise control, whereas I was downshifting and accelerating. Let's put it that way. I didn't downshift, but I accelerated. That's the difference. He was riding like in 6th gear, and I was in 3rd gear as I went by, if you equate it to automobiles. So you have to develop different cadences so that depending on what kind of ride you're doing, you're able to adapt. There's nothing wrong with his cadence. If that's, you're in a time trial and you're cruising and that's what works for you, fine. But I find that making sure you can adapt, especially in a group situation, gives you more flexibility. That's how come you can see I pulled for a long time and I was able to just go right back. Because if you use up all your glycogen, then you really can't recover and be able to get back in. You can see the pace we're holding. So if they had worked this hard back there, there wouldn't have been a gap. So I don't get it. Anyway, the body changes during the ride. Maybe they weren't feeling good at that moment. So the other thing I want to show here is that when Paul H gets through pulling, I'm just going to pull through and keep the effort the same. The speed will drop because the terrain will change. You can hear the wind. This is all exposed. There's no protection here. You can see I'm very close to him. I'm less than I'm probably about 2 to 3 inches off his wheel. I'm very close to him. I'm not overlapping, but I'm close enough to really benefit from the drag. I still sit off to one side so I can see around him, because he can't give warnings. He's on his aero bar, and sometimes he sways, which is not a problem for me, because since I'm not in the path of his wheel, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of debris on the road. I stay next to the white one to get through that. He's done. He tapped his hip and watch. I just rolled through, keeping the speed the same, so that he can get back in the draft and catch his breath. Now, that's what I do. The rest of the people who've been sitting back there and their heart rate's low and everything, because when you're not in the wind, it always feels easier. They're a little antsy, and so in a little while they'll come by. But for me, I'm at the front. I'm going to keep the effort the same, because right now, you see it says 1%. This road's going up. Very deceiving. It bites. So all I'm doing is keeping the effort the same and keep my cadence respectable. And when you do that, don't worry about the people. If they want to go faster, they will come around you, and you'll see that in a little bit. Hold the pace that's good for you for as long as you want. You don't have to stay there. I chose to stay there. I mean, I've been pulling most of the ride. I chose to stay here because I want to work out. Saturday's the day I want to get off the bike tire. So I'm stressing my system. I'm going a little less than I did back on Keenan cutoff. And this is the kind of riding that is very tolerable, because it's steady and hard. Now, some people are not used to that, because they're used to yo-yo, go hard, then rest. So sometimes when you keep it sustained, they have problems. Especially if they're not comfortable on their bike, because there's no chance to stop and stretch and take a break and relieve that uncomfortable area. So we're going on a slight grade. It doesn't register, but it's probably like 0.7, and then we've got the wind. So I'm in my climbing position right there. Open up my lungs so I can breathe, because it's a warm morning. Then Mike comes around, he taps me on the arm, and I roll back. See, they want to go faster than I'm going here, so that's fine. I find a gap, I slip in. And then Mark is behind here. He asks Paul if Paul wanted to come up. Paul said he was okay. Because Paul was on my wheel when the group came around. So Mark thought that Paul wanted to stay on my wheel, but Paul was like, I'm fine here. So because, you know, we already discussed this, so Paul knew that, okay, if we had kept going, these guys wouldn't have seen us until we got to the store. You know, that's just the way it was going to be. Because, you know, when we did those rides to BDS and Shira, all those places, this is the kind of riding we did. So, his thing was, okay, we break up our rhythm. Now look, they're going harder. So he's like, forget you guys. You know, the store's down the hill there. So he just blew them off. He just blew it off. He's like, I'm not wasting any more energy. Because they should have gone that hard when we were going. That's the point I was making. But anyway, I wanted to show you what we do at the stop. This is where Paul's already up there. I got the camera here. And a bunch of riders are here that did not ride with us. This is the Taco Corner store in Montgomery County. And there are riders already here when we arrive. That's Scott over there. He rides with us. So I just went ahead and set the camera down so they can record what happens at the stop. There are a lot of riders coming out of the store. They're not part of our group, but this is a big area for cyclists in this area. We stop here. It's perfectly located between where we start and the forest. The forest is north of here. And then you got Richards and Anderson, all those places we've been to. So people know each other. The cycling community is small. You know, and Scott is meeting people he hadn't seen.
Did you do Crumple this year? I did, yeah. That's a nice looking dirt. I know, I like this one. It's probably one of
So once we stop, the focus is to get liquids. I carry Vitalite. I'm going to go put water in my bottle and get my Vitalite mixed. And so I wanted to share this with you as we wrap up this week's video. So I hope you all got a chance to get out there and get your Ks in, because this is what we did on Saturday. These guys are heading out. They're getting their helmet. They got their own little thing they're doing, and they're rolling. And we just got here. Okay, so get those Ks in and keep those doctors fired.